What if a single moment, a billionaire pulling a makeup girl into his arms, could ignite chaos, destroy $1 billion wedding, and rewrite 2 lives forever? This isn't the fairy tale you know. It's scandal, passion, and betrayal colliding in ways the world has never witnessed before. You've never seen a story like this, guaranteed. Like and subscribe now to unlock powerful, unforgettable tales that will grip you from the first second to the last. Marina had never seen a ceiling try so hard to look like the night sky. Tiny bulbs were pinned into midnight blue velvet, constellations stitched with gold thread, a galaxy suspended above people who would never have to count coins for bus fare. She tipped her chin up once, just once, then returned to the checklist open on her phone. Brushes, sterilized, foundation palette, all shades, setting spray, extra canister, spare tie bar because grooms always lost the first one. She didn't belong to this world of velvet galaxies and whispering florists. She belonged to lists, to early alarms, and to steady hands. The Grand Lysander pulsed around her, trolley carts, of champagne flutes gliding over carpet like silver fish, a harpist tuning strings, planners slicing the air with earpieces and clipboards. Marina's shoes were cheap and reliable. Every step echoed softly, a quiet metronome. She was 30. Minutes early because early meant the train delays didn't win. Early meant you could breathe before someone needed you. Early meant rent got paid and Rafa's inhaler was never empty. Makeup groom suite? A planner asked, already walking, already expecting Marina to ripple into her wake. That's me. Marina. She adjusted her kit's strap and kept pace. They took a mirrored elevator that let the city climb behind them. Steel ribs, glass bones, September light. On the 37th floor, the corridor smelled like new leather and lemon polish. The planner rapped once, twice. A door opened to a room where everything was quiet and expensive, the air-conditioned hush of money. Damien Cross stood by the window, jacket draped over a chair, white shirt open at the throat, a tie coiled like a snake in his hand. He didn't turn at the knock. He was a headline made human, the orphan boy turned tech tycoon, the acquisition shark, the smile that sold 1,000 magazines. In person, he looked both exactly like his photographs and nothing like them at all. The photos missed the weariness around his eyes and the way he held still, like stillness was armor. The best man, a man too polished and too practiced, gestured with his chin. "You're the artist?" "Makeup," Marina said. "Groom prep." Damien cut his gaze to her. It landed like a weight and slid off again, uninterested. 15 minutes, he said, as if time bent to his schedule. Marina set her kit on the console. "I'll take 10. She worked in a semicircle of light by the window, primer to soften glare, color corrector for the faint shadows sleepless nights had tried to tattoo under his eyes. A light hand with foundation. He was pale, but not sickly. She'd promised herself she'd never give anyone the hyper-real plastic mask of fear. Powder, matte where the cameras would look. He watched her in the glass, not in the way men sometimes watched her, hungry, careless, but with the slow curiosity of someone measuring a new variable. She didn't smile for him. She worked. The room filled with small professional sounds, the soft clink of glass pots, the whisk of a fan brush, a zipper hushed closed. "Breathe," she said without thinking. "You're not a statue." He made the smallest sound. "Pardon?" "Your shoulders," Marina murmured, dusting powder across his jaw with feather-light taps. "You're carrying them like you think they might run away," the best man cleared his throat. A planner's voice crackled through a speaker on the console. "Final timeline update. Vows in 58. Damien's mouth tilted. It wasn't a smile, but it wasn't not a smile. "Do statues breathe? Not the good ones." Marina capped a bottle, eyes on her work. "Hold still for just... Yes, there." He turned to face her then. Up this close he smelled clean, something crisp and quiet, cedar and rain. A faint white scar nicked his eyebrow, the only imperfection money hadn't buffed away. His tie lay still on the chair like a dare. The open collar made him look younger and more human, like a boy who'd been called to the front of the class and hadn't had time to tuck in his shirt. "Do you also fix ties?" he asked, the words dry, like a man out of practice at joking. "If the situation is desperate." Marina lifted the tie, feeling the silk slip cold over her fingers. "This is a Windsor face. I can't abide a lazy four-in-hand on a day that costs more than my apartment building." "Do you always say what you think?" "Only when it's useful." The best man's phone buzzed. "They need me downstairs." He hesitated, evaluating Marina like she might be a small fire he could stamp out, then left, closing the door with the careful gentleness of a man who liked everything to close when he told it to. The room exhaled. Marina stepped closer. "Chin." "That, please." Damien obeyed. He was tall but cooperative, the combination she trusted in bridges and strangers on platforms, in boys who didn't know they were choking on pride. She looped the silk, the muscle memory strong enough to do it blind. 1, 2, cross up over, sharpen the dimple with a thumb. She felt the warmth of his body, the pulse at his throat, steady but faster than a statue's. "You look," she said, stepping back to assess, "almost like someone who wants today." His eyes flicked to hers. "Almost? Your tie is perfect," Marina said, "but you're holding your breath again." He huffed something like a laugh. It surprised both of them. The sound shifted the room, loosened something heavy. If she'd been the kind of person who kept a jar of rare sounds, she would have caught it and hidden it behind the flower at home to take out later and prove to Rafa that even the rich forgot how to laugh. "You're the first person to tell me I'm doing it wrong since 6 a.m., he said. "Everyone else says perfect like it's a prayer." "Perfect is for cakes," Marina said. "Faces need honesty." His gaze did that wait and slide again, but slower. "What's your name?" "Marina." "Marina," he repeated, as if fitting it against the day. "Thank you." There were 800 thanks in the world. This one felt like a stone dropped into deep water, ripples spreading. Marina capped her setting spray and angled her head toward the window. On the street, news vans accumulated like storm clouds. Drones drifted at permitted heights. The city watched because the city adored a spectacle. And nothing was more delicious than one wealthy life, grafted onto another, to make a taller, shinier tree. A phone on the desk chimed, a calendar alert. Through the open suite door, voices drifted. "Legal says the merger clause triggers at midnight, and the board won't tolerate and just get him to the altar." Marina's hands stilled for the first time that morning. The word merger clicked into the space between her and the man in front of her, a neat word with sharp teeth. She didn't look at him. It wasn't her business. She wasn't paid to care. But caring wasn't a thing she knew how to turn off like a lamp. "Eat something," she said quietly, gathering her brushes. "You'll crash halfway through the photos." He watched her pack. "Are you always like this?" "Like what?" "As if nothing about me is—" He searched for a word and seemed irritated he had to. "Special." Marina slid the fan brush into its slot. "I think you're just a person with a face and a bad habit of forgetting oxygen. The rest is headlines." He was still looking at her when the planner's voice crackled again. "Mr. Cross, they're ready to bring you down for first look." A beat. 2 minutes. He didn't move. Outside, the city blazed indifferent and enormous. Inside, the room was a held breath. Marina reached for her kit strap. "Your camera ready?" "Am I?" he asked. And it was not a question about powder. She shouldn't have looked up. She looked up anyway. Something unguarded lived in his expression, raw as a cut he hadn't decided to hide. It tugged at the part of her that kept going when the train stalled, when the rent hiked, when Rafa coughed at midnight in the damp. "Yes," she said, because truth was a kindness even when it hurt. "You are." She turned to go. His hand moved first, fast, almost startled by his own momentum. He caught her by the wrist, not hard enough to bruise, but with the certainty of a man who had decided not to let the moment leave without him. Marina froze. The room, the gold thread stars, the lemon polish air, all of it shrank to the point of contact, where his skin was too warm and her pulse betrayed her. "Marina," he said, and her name sounded different this time, like a key turned in a lock. "Just wait." She should have told him to let go. She had a rule about lines and clients and complications with suits that could buy and sell their own storms. She had a brother's prescription taped to the refrigerator, and a landlord who collected late fees like trophies. She had no time for gravity pretending to be romance. But then he stepped closer. The silk tie she'd knotted brushed her knuckles. His other hand rose, hesitated, then settled at the small of her back. He pulled her into his arms strongly, as if rescuing himself from a place only he could see. For one suspended heartbeat, Marina felt the strange, impossible safety of being held by a falling man. Down the corridor someone knocked, and the door handle turned. The knock rattled Marina back into herself. She stepped away from Damien as if his arms were a cliff edge she'd nearly leaned too far over. The door cracked open and a young planner peeked in, headset askew. "Mr. Cross, oh." The planner's eyes darted from Damien's loosened tie to Marina's flushed face. "We're ready downstairs." Damien's hand dropped, his jaw tightening like a steel shutter sliding back into place. 2 minutes. His voice was low, clipped, final. The planner nodded quickly and disappeared. Silence returned, but it wasn't the same hush as before. Now it pressed against Marina's ribs, filled with something unspoken. She cleared her throat, busying herself with her kit. "You're officially ready now, no touch-ups needed." Damien's tie was perfect, immaculate in fact. But his fingers toyed with it, as though something about the knot held a secret code he couldn't break. "You tied this differently than most," he said. "It's a Windsor, balanced, strong." Marina snapped her brush case shut. "Cameras. Like symmetry. Or maybe you like order," Damien countered. Her head jerked up. His eyes locked onto hers, steady, reading. She hated that he saw through her in ways people rarely did. "I like survival," she replied flatly. "Order helps." Damien's gaze softened, just a fraction, but enough to unravel the sharp mask. "You talk to me like I'm a man, not a billionaire." "Because that's what you are." Marina hoisted her kit onto her shoulder. "Skin, breath, too many meetings. Same as the rest of us." For the first time in years, Damien laughed. Quiet, unpolished, startled out of him like a boy discovering mischief. The sound hung between them, fragile and rare. "You're dangerous." "Marina," he murmured. "Because I tied your tie? Because you make me remember I'm human." Before she could answer, the suite door opened again, this time wider, without hesitation. A bridesmaid swept in, heels clicking, phone in hand. She froze when she saw Marina standing too close, the billionaire's tie still in her grasp. "Oh." The bridesmaid's lips curved into a smirk, sharp and knowing. "Didn't realize the groom needed such hands-on service." Marina's stomach dropped. She snatched her hands back, heart pounding. "I was just finishing up," but the bridesmaid was already halfway out the door, typing furiously into her phone. Damien cursed under his breath, striding toward the door. "I'll handle it." "No," Marina said quickly, panic spiking. In her chest. She'd worked too hard to climb into this fragile career, late nights, double shifts, carrying Rafa's bills in her pocket like anchors. One rumor could shatter everything. "Let her think whatever she wants. Just please don't make it worse." Damien turned back to her, something stormy flickering across his face. He looked like a man used to fighting fires with money and lawyers, but none of those weapons would save her reputation in a cutthroat industry that thrived on gossip. "You shouldn't have to pay for my choices," he said. "I shouldn't. I'll even be here right now," Marina whispered, clutching her kit strap. "This isn't my world. I'm just painting faces, fixing ties, paying rent." And yet, Damien's eyes lingered on her, voice rough. "You're the only real thing in this room. The words sank into her bones, dangerous and electric. She wanted to tell him to stop, that she couldn't afford hope disguised as honesty. But instead she found herself asking, "Why are you marrying her then, if you don't even want this?" Damien stiffened. His jaw flexed, and for the first time, his composure cracked. "Because the wedding isn't about me. It's about a merger worth billions. My father built an empire out of nothing. The board expects me to keep it standing." Merger. The word echoed again, sharper this time. Marina suddenly saw the tie not as silk, but as a chain, knotted too perfectly, choking him under polished fabric. Outside the suite, music swelled faintly from the ballroom below, violins rehearsing a melody sweet enough to mask the bitterness of deals signed in blood and gold. Marina should have walked out. She should have wished him luck and vanished back into her small apartment, back to Rafa's wheezing laughter, back to rent notices and peeling wallpaper. But instead, she said, quietly, "Maybe you don't need a perfect knot. Maybe you need to breathe." Damien stared at her, as if the words were both accusation and salvation. A knock came again, louder this time. "Mr. Cross, they're waiting." He didn't move. Neither did she. The tie sat flawless at his throat, yet the room was thick with tension, like both of them were suspended in the space between duty and desire. Finally, Marina slung her kit over her shoulder and stepped back. "Good luck, Mr. Cross." Her voice was professional again, even though her chest ached. "Damien," he corrected softly. She hesitated, then nodded once. "Good luck, Damien." And with that, she slipped out the door, just as the first whispers of scandal began to bloom in the hallways below. Marina spent the subway ride home clutching her kit, like it might dissolve if she let go. The wedding prep still throbbed in her head. The chandeliers, the whispers, Damien's eyes when he said her name. And the bridesmaid's smirk. That was the part that made her stomach twist. One loose tongue could ripple through the hotel, through her agency, through the entire city like wildfire. Her apartment smelled faintly of boiled rice and eucalyptus oil. Rafa was propped on the sofa with a blanket over his knees, a comic book open. He grinned when she came in, his inhaler tucked beside him. "You look tired, Mari." "Big day at work," she said, setting her kit down gently. She smoothed his hair, relieved to feel warmth rather than fever. "You hungry?" "Always." She cooked quickly, lentils, rice, garlic, familiar motions, grounding ones. But her mind wandered back to the suite, to Damien's laugh, to the way he had pulled her in as though she were the only real thing in his world. Dangerous thoughts. She reminded herself she couldn't afford them. At the same hour, Damien sat alone in the ballroom balcony, untouched champagne fizzing on the rail. Down below, hundreds of guests rehearsed polite chatter. Investors in silk ties, political heirs in couture dresses. He was supposed to join them for the pre-wedding dinner. Smile, toast, pretend. Instead, his mind replayed Marina's words. "Maybe you need to breathe. Breathe." A simple word, yet it cut through the suffocating expectations that had been piled on his shoulders since his father's death. The merger wasn't about love, it wasn't even about survival. It was about pleasing a board of directors who valued stock charts more than humanity. But now there was a complication. A makeup artist who saw him as a man, not an empire. 2 days later, Marina was sweeping her tiny salon corner when her phone buzzed. A number she didn't recognize. "Hello? Marina?" His voice, smooth, deep, unyielding, she nearly dropped the phone. "Damien, this is... How did you..." "I asked," he said simply. "I need you again. Tomorrow. Personal fitting. Her." Pulse stuttered. "That's not standard. You should call the agency." "I don't want the agency. I want you." It wasn't a request. It was the kind of statement that bent other people's wills. But Marina wasn't other people. "You don't need me. You have stylists, assistants, staff. I don't need them." A pause, softer. "I need someone who isn't afraid to tell me the truth." Marina closed her eyes. She should hang up. She should protect the fragile normal she'd built. But Rafa's cough echoed from the other room. and she thought of the paycheck her boss had docked last month when a rich client had complained about her honesty. "All right," she whispered. "Tomorrow, 1 hour." The fitting was in a penthouse draped with glass walls and a skyline that blinked like circuitry. Damien sat waiting, suit jacket off, expression unreadable. "You came," he said, as though he hadn't been sure she would. "I shouldn't have." Marina set down her kit. "If the press finds out, they won't." She hesitated, then stepped closer. He let her adjust the collar, brush stray powder from his temple. Up close, she could see the faint shadows under his eyes again. "Not." "Sleeping?" she asked quietly. His mouth tightened. "Sleep doesn't change the fact that I'm marrying someone I don't love, or that I'm bartering my life for a merger." Her hand froze mid-air. He had said it out loud, the thing she'd only overheard. "You don't have to," she said before she could stop herself. Damien gave a short, humorless laugh. "My father built Cross Industries from nothing. He raised me on one command: never show weakness. If I walk away, the board calls me reckless. The investors scatter, thousands lose jobs, and all because I wanted freedom." "Freedom isn't selfish," Marina said. "It's survival." His gaze pinned her. "Do you know what it's like to be surrounded by people who only want the empire, who smile and lie and never once tell you to eat or breathe, until you—" He broke off, as though the words were too dangerous. Marina's chest ached. She wanted to tell him she understood. That she too carried a life that wasn't her own. That every shift she worked was for Rafa's medicine, not for herself. But her honesty was a dangerous gift. "You're looking for someone to save you," she whispered. "I can't be that person." "Why not?" he demanded, stepping closer. "Because when billionaires fall, the people near them get crushed." The silence that followed was thick, electric. Neither moved. The next morning, Marina's boss called her into the office. His expression was sharp, his words sharper. "I don't know what you've done, Marina, but there are whispers. That you were too close to a client. That client, if this gets into the tabloids, we'll cut ties. Do you understand?" Her stomach dropped. She nodded quickly, even though her hands trembled. The bridesmaids smirk. The call from Damien. It was all too much. She walked out of the office into the rain, the city's neon lights smearing across wet pavement. She wanted to scream, to run, to forget. Instead, she heard Damien's voice in her head again. "You're the only real thing in this room." And she hated that some traitorous part of her wanted to believe him. That evening, as she returned home with groceries for Rafa, a sleek black car idled at the curb. Damien stepped out, umbrella in hand, suit immaculate. Neighbors peeked from windows, whispering. "Damien, what are you doing here?" she hissed, panic rising. He closed the umbrella, eyes steady on hers. "I can't do this alone, Marina, and I don't want to." And just like that, the line between their worlds blurred even further. Rain hammered the city that night, blurring traffic into ribbons of red and white. Marina stood frozen on the sidewalk, groceries dangling from one hand, umbrella forgotten at her side. Damien Cross, the billionaire groom, the man who had pulled her into his arms like the world might end, was standing in front of her building as if it were the most natural place to be. "Are you out of your mind?" she whispered harshly, glancing at neighbors peeking through cracked curtains. "People will see you. Let them," Damien said simply. "That's easy for you to say. You live in penthouses and headlines. I live here." She gestured at the peeling paint, the flickering hallway light above the entrance. "I can't afford whispers, Damien. Whispers destroy me." He stepped closer, rain droplets sliding off, his umbrella pooling at their feet. "I don't care about whispers, I care about you." Her heart thudded painfully. It would be so easy to let those words mean everything. Too easy. She forced her tone flat. "You don't know me. You know the girl who tied your tie, who told you to breathe. That's not the same as knowing." Damien studied her, eyes sharp in the dim streetlight. "Then let me know you." The next morning, Marina found her phone buzzing non-stop. A friend. From the salon texted her a photo, grainy, taken from a distance. Damien's black car in front of her building. Damien himself, umbrella in hand, gazing at her. The caption on a gossip blog screamed, "Billionaire groom's secret visit, not to his bride." Her chest hollowed out. It was happening faster than she feared. At the salon, whispers chased her down the hall. Her boss cornered her in the supply room. "Do you have any idea what this means for us? Clients won't book if they think our staff is entangled in scandals. You're one step away from unemployment, Marina." She bowed her head, shame burning through her. "I didn't ask for this." "Control it," her boss snapped, "or you're done." That evening, Damien called. His voice was steady, unshaken by the chaos. "I'll fix this." "You can't fix it," Marina said, pacing her tiny kitchen. "Not without making it worse. People already think I'm—" Her throat closed. She couldn't even finish. "They think because they want—" "The story," Damien interrupted. "Not the truth. I won't let them ruin you." "You're missing the point." She pressed her palm to the cool wall. "You can survive a scandal. You have lawyers, money, an empire. I don't. I'll lose everything." Silence stretched. Then Damien's voice dropped, softer, rougher. "I don't want you to lose. Not again, Marina. I haven't felt this in years. I won't let it go." Her knees weakened and she sank into a chair. "Why me?" "Because you don't want my empire. You don't flinch at my name. You see me. That's rarer than all the billions combined." 2 days later, Marina was sent to the hotel again, under strict orders from her boss to behave professionally. She arrived with her kit, head bowed, determined to make it quick. But as soon as she stepped into Damien's suite, she realized they weren't alone. The bride-to-be was there, elegant, beautiful, a diamond bracelet flashing like lightning on her wrist. "So you're her," the bride said, voice dripping with disdain. Marina froze. I'm just here to work." The bride laughed without humor. "Work? Is that what we're calling it? Visiting billionaires at midnight?" Her cheeks burned. "That's not what happened." The bride stepped closer, heels sharp against the marble. "Listen carefully, Marina. You are a girl with nothing. I am a woman with everything. If you don't stay away, I'll make sure your family never sees another paycheck. Every salon, every agency, every hospital I have reached you can't imagine." Marina's stomach knotted. She thought of Rafa, his medicine, the stack of unpaid bills. The bride leaned in, voice a hiss. "Stay in your place, and maybe I'll forget you exist." The door opened. Damien walked in, stopping short when he saw the two women facing each other. "What's going on?" "Just a little chat," the bride said sweetly, stepping back. But Damien's eyes went straight to Marina, catching the way her fists clenched. "Marina," she swallowed hard, forcing composure. "Nothing. I was just leaving." "Wait." Damien moved between them, his posture protective. He glanced at his bride, expression hard. "If you're threatening her—" "I don't need to threaten," the bride said coolly. "The world will do it for me." She swept out, leaving perfume and poison in her wake. Damien turned back, jaw tight. "What did she say to you?" "Nothing true," Marina whispered, clutching her kit. But inside, her chest trembled with fear. That night, Damien found her again. Not at her apartment this time. She'd begged him not to. But outside the salon after closing. "She can't hurt you," he said firmly. "I won't let her." "You don't get it," Marina said, tears threatening. "This isn't about you protecting me. It's about me losing everything I've built, everything I need to keep Rafa safe. I can't gamble with his life just—" "Because you're lonely." Damien flinched as though she'd struck him. "Is that what you think this is?" "What else could it be?" Her voice broke. "You're getting married. To someone else. I'm the scandal on the side." He stepped closer, eyes burning with intensity. "No. You're the reason I can't go through with this marriage. You're the reason I'm still standing." Marina shook her head, retreating. "Don't say that. Don't make me believe it." He reached out, catching her hand. His voice was raw, desperate. Then believe this. I will not marry her. Not when my heart already belongs to you. Her breath caught. The city hummed around them, neon lights, car horns, life pressing on. But in that moment, the world shrank to his words. And Marina realized they were both standing on the edge of a decision that would change everything. The morning of the wedding broke bright and merciless, the kind of sunshine that made the city gleam like polished steel. News vans clogged the cathedral steps, reporters clutching microphones, cameras swiveling toward any car that slowed. This wasn't just a wedding, it was a spectacle, a public coronation of wealth and power. Inside, Marina slipped through the side entrance with her kit hugged to her chest. She wasn't supposed to be here today. Her boss had banned her from further involvement, fearing another scandal. But Damien had called her himself, voice rough and certain. "I need you there. Please." She had tried to refuse, tried to tell. Him it was madness. But some traitorous part of her wanted to see, wanted to know if his promise was real. The groom's suite was chaos. Assistants scurried, phones buzzed, the best man barked orders. Damien stood in the center, immaculate in his black tuxedo, tie perfectly knotted, the tie she had tied for him days earlier, recreated with his own stubborn hands. When Marina entered, his gaze snapped to hers instantly, relief flooding his face like she'd brought oxygen into a suffocating room. "You came," he murmured, stepping closer. "I shouldn't have," she whispered back, scanning the room nervously. "If anyone sees me—" "Let them," Damien said, the same defiant note as before. "I need you to witness this." "Witness what?" Marina wanted to ask, but his expression stopped her. The cathedral doors opened, sunlight flooding the aisle. Guests rose like a wave, gasps echoing as the bride glided forward, flawless in white silk. The organ thundered. Camera flashes crackled like lightning. Damien waited at the altar, posture straight, face unreadable. Marina stood in the shadows. Behind a column, heart hammering, the vows began, words echoing through marble arches. The officiant's voice boomed, rich and solemn. "Do you, Damien Cross, take this woman?" But Damien didn't answer. The silence stretched, sharp as glass. A murmur rippled through the crowd. The bride stiffened, fingers tightening on her. "Okay. Do you," the officiant repeated, "take this woman to be your lawful wife?" Damien turned. Not to the officiant, not to the bride, to the shadows at the side of the altar where Marina stood frozen. "I can't," he said clearly, voice carrying through the cathedral. "I can't marry someone I don't love." Gasps erupted. Guests twisted in their seats. Reporters surged forward, cameras snapping like gunfire. The bride's face flushed crimson, fury sharp as a blade. "You humiliate me." "Here? In front of the world?" she hissed. Damien's voice did not waver. "This was never about love for you. It was about money, power, contracts. But for me, it was supposed to be a life, and I won't sell mine." The bride flung her bouquet to the floor, petals scattering like shrapnel. "You'll regret this," she spat, storming down the aisle as gasps turned into a roar of scandal. Marina's blood turned to ice as camera lenses swung toward her. Whispers rose like a tide. There. She is. The girl, the scandal. She tried to shrink into the shadows, but the photographers surged. "Is she the reason?" "Miss, look here. What's your name?" Panic clawed at her chest. She bolted through the side exit, her kit banging against her hip, her breath ragged. Outside, paparazzi were already circling, shouting questions, snapping photos. She pushed through the crowd, heart pounding, tears stinging. In the chaos, her phone buzzed with a text from her boss. "You're fired." Her world collapsed in an instant. Hours later, Marina sat trembling in her apartment, Rafa asleep in the next room. Outside, reporters hovered like vultures, lights flashing. Against the thin curtains. Headlines were already spreading online. "Billionaire groom abandons bride at the altar for his makeup artist?" A knock shook the door. Marina's chest tightened. She couldn't handle reporters, not now, but when she opened the door, Damien stood there, not in a limo, not surrounded by security. Alone. his tuxedo jacket gone, tie loosened, eyes weary, but burning. "Damien, what are you doing here?" she whispered. "I had to see you," he said simply. "I had to make sure you knew. I didn't walk away from her. I walked toward you." Her throat closed. "Do you realize what you've done? My career is over. The tabloids will tear me apart. Rafa, he doesn't deserve this chaos." "I know," Damien said, stepping inside, closing the door gently. "That's why I'm here, to tell you I'll face it with you. All of it. If you'll let me." Marina sank into the sofa, burying her face in her hands. Everything was ruined. And yet, sitting across from her, Damien looked freer than she had ever seen him. "Marina," he said softly, reaching for her hand. "I don't care about empires anymore. I care about you. Tell me I didn't throw it all away for nothing." Her heart twisted, caught between fear and longing. And in the silence that followed, Marina realized she had to make a choice between safety and love, between survival and the dangerous promise of being wanted by a man who had risked everything for her. The days after the wedding felt like a storm that would never end. News channels replayed the cathedral moment on a loop. Damien Cross saying, "I can't," in front of hundreds of guests. Headlines screamed betrayal, scandal, chaos. The bride's family called it humiliation. Investors called it recklessness. And Marina? She was called a dozen names that stung like lashes. Homewrecker, gold digger, social climber. She barely left the apartment. Reporters camped outside, cameras flashing whenever she peeked through the blinds. Her phone was a graveyard of messages, some cruel, some sympathetic, most from numbers she didn't recognize. Her boss had cut her loose, clients cancelled appointments, and friends stopped answering her texts. Only Rafa kept her anchored. Her younger brother would bring her tea, his small hand warm against hers. "Don't listen to them, Mari. They don't know you." But the weight of it crushed her. Every sacrifice she had made, to keep a roof overhead, to buy Rafa's medicine, to prove she belonged in this world, felt like it had collapsed overnight. On the fourth night, the storm knocked again. Not reporters, not neighbors. Damien. He looked different. Not the billionaire in perfect suits, not the man polished for the world's cameras. He was weary, shirt sleeves rolled up, tie missing. But his eyes, those sharp, searching eyes, burned with the same conviction as in the cathedral. "Marina," he said softly when she opened the door. "May I come in?" She hesitated, but Rafa was watching from the sofa, wide-eyed. She stepped aside. Inside, Damien looked around the small apartment, the cracked plaster walls, the sagging couch, the photographs taped to the refrigerator. For once, he wasn't in a world of chandeliers and polished marble. He was in her world. "I wanted you to hear it from me," he said. "The board's furious. Investors are threatening to pull. I could lose everything." Her chest tightened. "Then why did you do it?" "Because I meant what I said." He stepped closer. "I couldn't marry someone for business when my heart already belongs to you." Tears burned her eyes, a mix of fear and longing. "Damien, I can't survive your world. I've already lost everything." "No," he said firmly, taking her hands. "You haven't. You still have yourself, and you still have me if you'll take me." The weeks that followed weren't easy. The media frenzy didn't die overnight, but Damien faced it head-on. At press conferences, when asked about Marina, he didn't deflect. He didn't hide. "She is not a scandal," he told reporters. "She is the only person who's ever told me the truth, and I won't apologize for choosing her." Slowly, the narrative began to shift. Some called it foolish, others called it romantic. But one thing became clear. Damien was no longer the untouchable billionaire groom. He was human, and with that humanity, he made a promise to Marina. Not one of wealth, but of partnership. He approached her one evening with papers, not marriage, contracts but business ones. "You once told me freedom isn't selfish, it's survival. I want you to have that freedom too. Let me help you open your beauty academy." Her hands trembled as she held the documents. Funding, location, resources, all mapped out. "Why would you do this?" she whispered. "Because you spent your whole life carrying others," Damien said. "It's time someone carried you." 3 months later, the doors of Marina's beauty academy opened in a refurbished building downtown. The walls were painted warm cream, mirrors lined the studios, and the shelves gleamed with supplies Marina once only dreamed of affording. The academy wasn't just for wealthy clients, it was for girls like her, talented, overlooked, in need of a chance. Scholarships were offered, training programs designed for single mothers, for students from neighborhoods forgotten by luxury salons. Reporters still showed up, curious about the makeup girl who stole the billionaire. But when they saw Marina teaching a teenager how to blend foundation or fixing a nervous student's brush grip, the scandal headlines dulled. She wasn't a mistress of fortune. She was a mentor, a leader, a woman building something real. The day of the Academy's launch ceremony, Damien arrived quietly. He didn't dominate the room or flaunt his presence. He stood in the corner, watching Marina shine in her element. When the event ended and the crowd filtered out, he approached. She was fixing one of the students' ties for a presentation, fingers deft and practiced. When she looked up, Damien was there, smiling faintly. "Full circle," he murmured. She laughed softly. "Seems ties follow us around." This time, when he reached for her, there were no shadows, no secrets, no scandal hanging between them. He pulled her into his arms, not with desperation, but with certainty. In front of the remaining students, the staff, the city itself, he chose her again, openly, proudly. And for the first time since the chaos began, Marina didn't feel like she was standing on the edge of a cliff. She felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. That night, as they locked up the academy, Marina leaned against the doorframe, watching the city lights twinkle. "You realize," she teased, "that this isn't the life you're wanted for you." Damien slipped an arm around her shoulders, his voice warm in her ear. "No, it's better." Marina smiled, resting her head against him. The world could keep its whispers. She had built something real, and she had someone who chose her not despite her truth but because of it. And under the quiet glow of the city, Marina finally let herself believe in new beginnings.